Good evening and welcome to the Gerry Leeds United show. We are joining you here after the Leeds have just beat Southampton 3-0, and we've a bit of a Celtic flavour to the show tonight. We three Leeds born, just like Shirt Dallas, from the same
Okay.
part of the world as Shirt Dallas. So we've got Leeds born JK and Leeds born Brian and Leeds born Gerry. So we're all here. So 3-0. What a result. I think my initial reaction half time, I wasn't happy, to be honest. I didn't think we were great in the first half, but second half you have to hand it to them. They fairly turned it around. So what would your initial thoughts be, JK?
Just what you said there yourself, Jerry. We had a wee bit of a natter just before we came on live, and I'd echo that. I was quite nervous at half time. I thought to myself, this keeps going as it is. It's just going to be another one of those like 1-0, 2-1 results that'll get away from us. Obviously, there were words exchanged at half time. Coach and backroom staff, the players, get it sorted out, and there's that change as well. Didn't surprise me. I don't think Harrison, despite the goal against Palace, I don't think Harrison's been playing that well in recent games. And it didn't surprise me that he was taken off. He's been quite ineffective. You've seen games where he's been outstanding, but in this particular game, I thought he was lightweight. A lot of players were giving the ball away, a lot of sloppy passes. A lot of times you're looking, going, goodness me, just putting pressure on ourselves, and that's the keeper and the back four. Llorente that's ring rusty to me. I thought the second half, actually, he looked very good. He looks a player, and he lasted 90 minutes. So let's all have a party. If we're coming out of lockdown, whenever it is, then let's have a Llorente party, because he managed to survive the full 90 minutes, which I think must come as a shock to everybody, because I for one thought there's no chance. You probably saw Sean Wilkinson's tweet earlier on, and a lot of people were asking the same thing. The Llorente bingo, how long would he last? And I said hopefully 90, but probably near 9. So from the last that 90 minutes, and even when you saw him getting a whack on the ribs, that'll probably be him out for 6 weeks. But anyway, we'll enjoy the fact that he lasted tonight. And look, yes, a significantly better second half, but it had to be, Gerry. They had to, but sure, we'll hear what Brian has to say as well.
Well,
Brian, over to you.
You've sort of covered it for me. Just a couple of points. First of all, after the game of the weekend and how I started off the game of the weekend, just like I say, absolutely, completely delighted. 3-0 win. The record books, I'll say, was stuffed them. And it was more like a draw the first half and stuffed them the second half. Leeds fans like ourselves, we always say we never get anything. Well, my man of the match for the first half was Andre Mariner, because he was brave enough to look at VAR to stop the pen. He was brave to stop a goal they scored by saying that he hadn't quite blown the whistle. I thought he stood up straight, and I thought he was one of our best players. So it's not often we say the ref's on our side. I thought when I was working late today, and I literally only got finished work and sat in front of the TV with about 2 minutes to go. So I hadn't seen the lineup, hadn't had a chance to see any of the build-up. And when I looked at the lineup and saw that it looked like a 3-3-3-1, it was confusing me a bit as to who was going to play where. And then when they started playing, I thought they looked a bit sloppy. I completely agree with you, JK. Some of the passing in the first half was pretty poor. And in fact, I almost hate to say it, Lord God, Rafinha, he gave the ball away tonight way more than he normally does. But right. The other thing is that there was sort of, I think both teams were playing the pitch. Now the Sky apps, I don't know which version of Sky you were watching. I was watching the well, it was the same comedy right now, but the pitch was getting a slating, which initially I was thinking, flip, I'm fed up and I'm talking about the pitch, but the pitch certainly looked to be causing a lot of issues. But yeah, first half, I thought the first 20 minutes, it took us a while to settle down, and they rattled us a wee bit. And in the second half, I'm pro Costa. Okay, I mean I love Harrison, I love Rafinha, but I'm quite pro Costa, and why? Because he sort of I think I talked previously. You know, you'd feel sorry if there you were in your position, you were the number one kid in the block, and all of a sudden the missus brings home a good-looking Brazilian, and he takes your place. I mean, it's just not going to do your confidence much good, and I think his confidence took a big knock when Rafinha came along. But tonight, you know, there were 3 goals. I thought the first one was a great a goal, and just trying to see who got the assist. I wrote down.
Tyler Roberts.
Roberts, yeah, Roberts good ball. But the second 2 goals, in my opinion, both goals were Costa assists, because for the Dallas goal, Costa ran a mile right up, gave the ball to Dallas. And by the way, the Sky commentary said that Dallas's goal wasn't glamorous. He hit it with the outside of his left foot. I thought it was very glamorous.
I have to agree there, Brian. I couldn't believe. Actually,
no,
I
think they just missed that. I think that they think he toe poked it. It was
I'll probably come on to that whole Sky commentary at some stage. I think that needs to be mentioned.
And then the Rafinha free kick, which was a great free kick. Now I don't know whether it was a bad wall, a bad goalie, or just absolute brilliance with the kick. So let's call it absolute brilliance. But Costa ran more than the half length of the pitch to get up to that position to be tripped when he was about to lay it off, possibly to Bamford, I think, and he was tripped. So Costa, to me, was the assist in that goal. And there were a couple of times when Costa ran the pitch very well, but also ran back the way very well. So I was really pleased for him and for the team with his performance in the second half. Sorry if there's a wee bit of background noise going on there.
Okay.
So I was pleased to see. I thought Hernandez had a better cameo performance than he did at the weekend, so that was encouraging as well. So overall, first half, yeah, but like you guys were saying, and second half, you know, and one other thing I just want to say, did they say in the commentary tonight that Gordon McQueen has been diagnosed with dementia?
Yeah,
and that took a bit of the shine off the whole game for me when I heard that, because you know McQueen would have been. I know that he ended up elsewhere, but when he played for Leeds, I thought he was, you know, a colossus of our team previously. So I'm really sorry to hear that. Anyway, there you go.
No, I think obviously the McQueen thing. I've just been reading, kind of, as I said, I've been said a few times on the channel. I've been reading sort of a wee book from sort of the Riviera, and they've just kind of the bit where I'm at, they've just kind of signed him, and they're sort of like he's starting to kind of knock Big Jack out of the team and stuff. So yeah, it's just, you know, it's another one from that era where, you know, these sort of head injuries and are, you know, heading the ball and stuff and dementia, and I know there's a lot of talk about it, and it's something where, you know, we'll maybe talk about it at some stage, but it's obviously, you know, there has been a connection there, you know. So just my own notes then from sort of from the game and stuff. So the first half, you mentioned about the penalty. Yeah, for I know I get a bit of stick about my opinions on penalties and not really understanding penalties anymore. But no, I thought the referee got that one spot on, and yeah, as you say, done well to go to VAR. The one then, the controversial one where they played the ball at the free kick. I think sort of strictly by the rules, I think the referee was grand, because they sort of say if we're going to play a free kick, you need to kind of say to the referee beforehand. And the referee was nowhere near the player that was taking it, and they obviously pulled it back, and you could see before he hit the shot, like he was making, you know, blowing the whistle, telling him to stop it. So I think that was okay, but you know yourself, if it was Leeds, we would definitely have a wee gurn about it anyway. But we came out in the right side of that. Jack Harrison, you've mentioned there about his recent form. I was kind of looking at it, and I was kind of like thinking to myself, he seems to be on a bad run. So I went back and I looked at our last 6 games. The last 6 games, he scored against Crystal Palace, he scored against Leicester, he scored against Newcastle. So he's got 3 goals in 6 games. But what I would say is, whenever he has a quiet game or a bad game, he really does seem anonymous. And like Brian said there, Helder Costa, scored against Arsenal, and yeah, a great cameo tonight. Thought he played really well. So I think there is potentially question marks there about the Villa game at the weekend and whether Costa might be worthy of a start. The Dallas goal, I was looking at it and likening him to Ronaldo from the 2002 World Cup when he scored a toe poke, but you're telling me that was the outside of the boot? No, I'm not having it, lads. I'm not having it. It was a good old fashioned toe poker, as far as I'm concerned.
Hold on,
it was
a toe poker. You need to get a new TV, Gerry, in high definition.
I think it's worthy more of what was said on Sky commentary. I think they were quite dismissive of the actual. They were waxing lyrical about the finish, but excuse me, sorry, second, but the goal itself or the build up, sorry, but the actual finish itself were like a bit dismissive. But no, I don't think it was. I think it was a good goal. So, but anyway.
I don't think there's anything wrong with if it was a good old, as we say, a good old fashioned toe poke. But because like the one at the goal that I'm comparing it to, sometimes when you take a shot like that, it surprises the goalkeeper, and he's not as quick to get to it. The other thing then I wanted just to say as well was the Rafinha free kick, and yeah, good free kick, put it in a good place. I thought the goalkeeper was poor, but there was one thing that I noticed on it, and it was we had players in the wall, kind of protecting the wall, and right as Rafinha was taking it, Bamford grabbed Costa and sort of flung him across where he was going right across where the goalkeeper would have been seeing it. And I swear that meant the goalkeeper wasn't able to see it until late. So you give the assist to Costa, I'm giving it to Patrick Bamford. And that's nothing to do with him being my captain in Fantasy Premier League this week. But no, I think we have to be, that we're I think 3-0, and one other thing we have to mention as well is we won a match without Calvin Phillips, which we haven't done since that Villa game, which we also won 3-0, and it was a big one. One of the other things, I can't remember which one of the two he's mentioned it, about the passing in the first half. I think part of the problem was, like you were saying, Brian, the 3-3-3-1 kind of thing, where I think part of our problem is we've got the three defenders and then you've got the two guys wide, and you basically have one central midfielder, where then Tyler Roberts is kind of playing the 10. And I think far too often we had the three defenders looking to play the ball into midfield, where the out ball, whenever you're playing that system, has to be the wide men. And it took them 15, 20 minutes to find that. And then whenever they did, that's where the game changed for me. But 3-0, I'm absolutely ecstatic. So with regards in Harrison, what do you think, JK? Who is Costa? Is Costa worthy of a start, or do we stick with Jack? What do we do for the Villa game?
I think Harrison maybe needs to be taken out of the picture just for a game or two, a bit like Klitsch was a couple of weeks ago. I'm not saying Klitsch, I don't think again was anything outstanding tonight, just did what he normally does, but I think maybe just in a similar sort of vein, I think Harrison maybe should be just benched for maybe just the Villa game, and show a couple of things. First of all, Bielsa is prepared to change. He is prepared to, if he notices that a player, I suppose the big thing we have to remember is we're summarising what we saw tonight. Bielsa and his backroom staff are seeing a week's worth of what's going on, and Harrison, for all we know, probably one of the fittest. Is probably one of the, he probably puts the miles in training, and Bielsa, I would say, is a big believer in whoever's doing that is in the first 11. So maybe I'm doing a bit of a disservice, but I think just for his confidence point of view, we haven't signed him permanently yet. I think we probably will, but if he keeps continuing maybe to have anonymous games here and there, then you start to, questions might be asked. Whether it be from fans or alternatively Victor Orta and the like, who may say, are we sure we want to spend? I know it's not massive money, but nonetheless, you could go and spend that money on another player elsewhere. When you maybe do have some players that could maybe just do as good a job already in the squad, So personally, I would I think bench him and give Costa a chance. The difficulty for Costa is he more so than I think your average player. He's a confidence player. I think his head will drop if say he played against Villa and had a really poor first half and then was substituted and replaced with Harrison. I think that fella's head will drop a bit, like what Brian was saying about Rafinha, the Brazilian coming back, so or the Brazilian turning up at your doorstep, whatever. I think that would not help in terms of his confidence. I think the guy has looked in the cameo performances he's made. Come on, he's done really well. Is he deserving of a start? He's pushing for it, put it like that. But I think that's what we need to do is just switch them around for a match. But there again, you need to look at who the Villa 11 are going to be, and Bielsa's going to try and mix and match those players against who he thinks are going to be in the Villa first 11. So again, Harrison might get a chance based on that. I'm not entirely sure. If it was me personally, but what I know, I would bench him for this coming game.
And Brian, you've spoke highly of Costa, so would we?
I think it's a bit of a difficult one. First of all, I think it's great we've got three players who we can interchange a little bit to freshen things up. So it's great to have that choice. With Pavida being out, we're probably limited to that triad in terms of who's going to fill the wing position. So a bit of competition does no harm. Harrison undoubtedly got hooked at half time, but the question is did he get hooked because Bielsa saw something tactical that he could change around by changing the wing that Rafinha was on, because Rafinha had a fairly good first half on the other wing. So it was a little bit tactical, but it was usually hooked at halftime means you're not happy. But was some of it just changed the whole thing around? So as to who gets the start on Saturday, I don't think it makes a massive amount of difference, because you've sort of got a bit of fuel in the tank that says it can be 2 of 3 at any time, and that's sort of Bielsa's tactics, isn't it? That he sort of picks tactics and then people around the tactics, but he's usually pretty loyal to the previous starting 11. There were two things about the midfield. One you picked up on, Gerry, which would be interested to hear your opinions on. Sorry, Gerry, you'd mentioned it. So two things I'd like to hear your opinion on. Number one was that Shackleton didn't get on the pitch tonight, given that he had most of the, if not all of the match. Did Shackleton get the whole match on Saturday?
He was injured tonight.
Was injured, right? Thank you. You see what I mean? I only got down.
I know if you're catching things late. Yeah, no, it
was injured. Right, that's
minor injury is how it was put. So I would say probably enough to put him out for this game, but it could be back in contention for the Villa game.
Thanks for confirming that for me, because I was wondering whether it had been dropped. The other bit was, and you mentioned about Klitsch, because Klitsch is like the silent assassin. He's in the team. He's not all sparkles, but he's a intricate part of the engine. He's a bit like, I don't know, what would be like, a bit like the carburetor, not exactly glamorous, but without it, your engines are going to work or whatever. Tonight, when he went off injured, I think he went off in about the 66th minute, and Sky flashed up just not short of the of Dallas's goal. So if there was about a 10-minute period where all of a sudden the possession turned to 60-40 or 60, might have been 68-32 or something like that, in Southampton's favour when we were 1-0 up. And I thought that had a bit to do with Alioski coming in favour of Dallas in defence, and Dallas moving into midfield, although that ended up being a masterstroke. So it's, I suppose what I'm asking is Klitsch is he like the invisible man that we can't do without? Because he just always seems to be Mr. Reliable, but he doesn't sparkle. So I don't know what you guys think about that. I mean, I think it'd be a miss if he's injured for Saturday. I definitely think it'd be a miss. But going back down to your point, I think that the rest that he had, a couple of games hooked, having basically been Bielsa's pride and joy for the guts of 2 years. It was an interesting move. So what do you think for Saturday then? If Klitsch was injured, then guys, who do you think would play there?
I'll let you go ahead first, JK, because I've got my opinions on Click, but I'll let you go first.
Well, maybe just give a wee bit of opinion. He divides opinion throughout the fan base, I think, would be a fair point. You'll hear some people who are very, very dismissive of him say that he's not a Premier League player. And then there's others who will always quote back to the Thomas Christensen days when he was sent out on loan. I think we got him for £1 million. So he owes us nothing in terms of value. Me personally, I think he's some good games. He has some not so good games. So he's just one of those players. He does his job. He does what he's asked to do. I would say potentially if he's not playing and I think there's a chance that he won't be, if I'm honest. I think Shackleton, if he's back, possibly would maybe fill that role potentially. If not, I don't know. Tyler Roberts tonight again. You go on to social media and we've said this before. It's a horrible place. At the best of times, again, he was getting lambasted. He set up the first goal. He does nothing but run. He tries his best. He does try to take players on, and you can see that he does put the fear in a little bit at times. But to go back, mentioning another player, Brian, that you mentioned, I don't think we've seen the end of Pablo just yet. I think he'll be away at the end of the season, but I would love to see him getting away. Like some of the balls, even tonight, that he was spraying about, just reminded you of those championship. But it didn't all come off on the shot at the end, etc., etc. However, he can still see that little bit of magic dust that he has, and he intercepted a few balls that were going through and things. So not 90 minutes. I think maybe look at the 70, and like even tonight, I know it was too late when it happened by the time we got the third goal, but I'd love to see Gelhardt getting just 10 minutes. I thought against Palace he could have got maybe 10 minutes, something like that, just to bring him on, see what he's like. See what he looks like against bigger players, better players. Yeah. I'd love to see it. I don't know when we would give him the opportunity, because yes, it's great he's on the bench. Yes, he's getting all that first team experience, that whole what it's like to go into a dressing room of players that are above your level, effectively. But I'd love to see him getting just a wee sniff at some stage, and whether that would be, again, I think the Villa game is going to be tough. I'm sure we're going to touch on it at some stage. I think it's going to be a hard game. I don't think they're not pushover by any stretch of imagination. So I don't know when he's going to get his wee chance, but I'd love to see him just getting just a quick wee cameo, maybe a 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe if we were a couple of goals ahead against somebody, home or away, just be nice to see him getting a wee run out.
Mm-hmm. So my thoughts then, looking ahead and on Click, I think the guy gets such a hard time, and it's completely unwarranted, to be honest. I think the particular lineup, I've mentioned the lineup and the way we played. I don't care who you are. If you're a central midfielder, now you can pick whoever you want and say they're the best central midfielder in the world. You put them in their Premier League match as the only central midfielder, and they're going to struggle. And I just think that, just the way that system is, it's a hard system for him. Where like obviously, as I say, Roberts is a 10, and like who plays one central midfielder? It's not the dumb thing. It's just I think he gets such a hard time. And I really think he's a fantastic footballer, and I think he showed that at the start of the season when he was playing a bit more freely, and we were coming in and everybody was really fresh, and he got a couple of goals, couple of assists at the beginning, and then obviously sort of quieted him down. And his position too, you have to remember that like as bad as like things have been offensively for us in terms of injuries, the midfield is pretty, like we're sitting there probably if we were playing our first 11. Our first 11 would be Phillips, Click, and Rodrigo would be the three central midfield players, and we're probably going into this Aston Villa game with none of them playing. So I think, for me, I think Click gets a lot of stick. I think he's sometimes the fall guy. I actually put on after about 10 minutes, as soon as I seen the way we were playing and how isolated he was in the central midfield, I put on. I can't wait to see All the experts, saying about Click and whenever he gets subbed off and about how rubbish he is and all this here. And sure enough, I was looking on social media at half time and there they were. Click's not good enough. Click needs to do this and do that. I think the guy's fine. With regards to what we do at the weekend, I think we're not that far from just like basically getting bums on seats and like who do we put in there? If Click's out, Phillips and Rodrigo weren't back. For a start, I think one of them three guys is going to drop out of defence because I don't think we'll play a back three at the weekend. So the obvious answer is they might put Struik in the midfield, which I hope they don't, but I think that's a possibility. I thought with regards to three of them tonight, I thought again, another guy that gets stick. Liam Cooper was brilliant again, absolutely outstanding again. I actually wrote down the three defenders and sort of like quick stats just before the whistle went. So Struik, he had four tackles, 1 interception, and 3 clearances. Llorente, 1 tackle, 4 interceptions, and 4 clearances. Cooper, 4 tackles, 3 interceptions, 5 clearances, and 1 blocked shot. Like he's just, people say that he's not a Premier League footballer and all this here, but he's been. I would honestly have him. Like if you were doing it, like our top sort of 5 players this season, for me he's there. For me he's in there. And he's maybe made a couple of mistakes here and there, and he should have scored again. I predicted last night that he would have scored, and he had a chance. And but I'm not going to give off because we won 3-0, so I'm not going to complain about that. But no, seriously, I think Struik, I think will probably play midfield. So straight away, like you're then still looking for a replacement for our Click, which if Shackleton's fit, it'll be Shackleton. Would Pablo have a start in him? I don't know. He hasn't started since sort of the beginning of the season. So, but I would maybe like to see him getting his chance in the Premier League. But I think you're probably looking. If Click's injured, it'll be either Shackleton or Pablo will start, and I just think the rest of them will just maybe reshuffle. Although you could obviously put Dallas in the midfield and bring Alioski in too, but you just don't know what Bielsa will do. But I think there will be a change of shape more than anything.
Yeah.
So on tonight then, man of the match. Who would you give it to, Brian?
Well, it would be hard not to give it to Rafinha, to be fair. But again, I felt that there was Rafinha, man of the match. Can't really argue with that. Lots of other good performances. Thought the goalie had another good game. One world-class save when in fact the guy, I think it was ruled out for offside after he'd saved it. Which I thought was really, really good. So, I'd go Rafinha, probably followed by Dallas, but,
I think that's probably fair enough. What about you, JK? Who would you?
Yeah, it has to be Rafinha tonight. You'll be pleased to hear, Gerry. I'm sure you'll agree too. I'm being your best bud. The ball that he played at the very end, the way he held it up, it was Alioski. He had it, and you thought, I think there was 2 or 3 players around him. And he thought he can't go anywhere with that, but it is him. Even that ball alone, I nearly give him man of the match for that little trick that he did. I thought he was very unfortunate with the one-on-one that he had, and it effectively was until that guy came in. Superb tackle. Again, I thought at the very start, just by the way, I'm not saying Rafinha was trying, unlike I think the Southampton guy, I don't think he was trying to buy a penalty. I think the guy's tackle was a good one, but he did not follow through, but he did catch him in such a way that he went down. But he got up, you'll see beside South America, and there'd be a lot of that, wouldn't there? Sort of theatricals. He got up, said fair play. In fact, that big fella for Southampton that had come off, it was the pitch that got him. He looks a good player. I know he's maybe not a Bielsa type player, but I thought he played very, very well for Southampton, and he was lost when he came off. Brian mentioned the keeper there. Good to see. That'll help his confidence. Brian mentioned the save from the handball. If you remember, he had another save as well from Stuart Armstrong that I think he got caught out with the Aubameyang. It's similar sort of almost. So maybe he's been keeping an eye on that, and maybe Neil Sullivan and the like have been helping him out and saying, look, watch out for that. That will be tried again on you. So it was a very, very good save as well. So it'll not do him any harm. Although again, just to mention the keeper, and this is an overall thing again, there was some very, very loose, unexplained, kick balls. Like he did kick the ball long a couple of times tonight, and he's a good dead ball expert. For somebody who is good at doing that particular part of his game, he should be doing it more often. Mix it up a bit. There's far, far too much of playing from the back for me. And then it does put your heart in your mouth if it goes wrong, and it has done on several occasions this season. You're thinking either it leads to a goal or a near miss, whatever. Sometimes just do what you do tonight, which was pin it, both wings, centre of the park, wherever he wanted it to go, it went. He was very deliberate. So if he knows he can do it, he should do it more often. Not all the time, but more often. But there was a few very loose passes in the first half, and then Alioski comes on and does all that, giving the ball away. I think he'll do well. He was in the starting lineup, remember, for a period there. I think he'll do well to maybe get himself back into that first 11 again, because he's a wee bit of an accident waiting to happen, unfortunately.
Well, it's interesting picking up about Alioski, who blows a bit hot and cold. He's certainly had some starring moments this season, and he's also had what looks like just not being quite good enough standard. The fact that they hasn't given him a new contract yet, it went past the transfer window, leaving him free to for that whole Galatasaray thing to sort of materialize, would sort of suggest that he's maybe not central thinking for next year. Who can tell? You were mentioning about some of the commentary tonight, and I thought some of it was actually pretty good. But I did think that some of it was, quite dismissive. There was one bit in particular with Bamford where he said, Bamford had scored a goal and then had another really good opportunity where he hit it at the goalkeeper. And I'm not sure who the summariser was. To be fair, who was it?
Andy Hinchcliffe.
Oh, yeah. And Hinchcliffe said, quote unquote, something to roughly, when he scored the goal, he's a Premiership player. And then he said, but that miss was a Championship miss. And I'm sitting thinking, well, every miss for every attacker in the Premier League must be a Championship, I think.
Exactly.
And it was
what does that even mean?
I just thought it was so disingenuous for a guy who's got 13 goals this season, one of the top scorers in the Prem, proved everybody wrong. Paddy's he's far too nice a lad, but he should be holding the one finger up to everybody because he's had so many knockers. But anyway, there you go. Could I just come back to one thing we were talking about just briefly, if you don't mind, about dementia and head and balls? Clearly, there needs to be more research done in it, and there certainly seems to have been a number of footballers who've ended up with dementia. But it's interesting that it's almost now become an almost fait accompli, saying it must be football having done that. You guys think, because I've had we all have relatives with dementia. None of them who played professional football or headed the ball with a lace. Do you think they really do need to get to the bottom of it? But are we facing a game where you won't be allowed to head the ball?
I kind of have some opinions on this. Like I was actually talking. I was actually having the discussion, even but like it was before the news was broke about Gordon McQueen, and we were actually talking about it. JK knows him, a fella that we both used to work with. I was talking to him on work today. Yesterday, actually, sorry, it wasn't. He would do a wee bit of coaching, and we were talking about, obviously, Scotland have introduced where, like, at a certain age, you're not allowed to head the ball up until you're a certain age. So we were talking about it. Now, my thing about it is, yes, I definitely 110% believe that there is a connection between the percentage of footballers that generation that have had and went on to contract dementia and Alzheimer's through heading the ball, in terms of a percentage of them and a percentage of the general population. Like, I'm not saying it's the only thing that gets it, but I do definitely believe that it is. Now, my thing is, footballs today are very different to footballs in the older, footballs now are a lot lighter, certainly all year round. I know, like, probably in normal times they were roughly around the same weight, but I know they talk about, like, the balls used to retain water a lot more, and heading the balls then were a lot. Now, I wonder what the situation would be like. Has it already been remedied with the modern technology and the modern football? I honestly don't know, and I think that's something that needs to be researched. But at the end of the day, are we in a position where we need to wait 30, 40 years for this generation to get older and see whether it's improved? Something needs to be done, in my opinion, before that. What that is, I don't know. I also follow a lot of American sports, and American football in particular has had big issues surrounding this, and like a lot of players that have passed away have their families have donated their brains, and they found a lot of, I can't remember, it's like the white sort of matter at the front of there. I can't remember the proper name for it, but it has been found, and I strongly think that it is. I think Scotland, while they should be in one way applauded, for taking action on something which, yes, to me there is evidence, and as I say, I don't know whether it's helping now, because I don't know whether the modern balls have already remedied it or not. But we were just talking yesterday in work about it, and we were kind of saying all the knock-on effect things. I think one of the things is anybody that's played, I played football at a very low standard, and my biggest weakness at that low level was heading the ball. It either hit me up here or in the face, and I could never get that right. And if you're not teaching kids how to head the ball at a young age, I think there's potential where that could end up being damaging as well in some ways, where if they're not actually being taught, it could be dangerous. There's also the risk of high feet, if the ball's coming in, is somebody going to start trying to lift their leg and kick it, and people hitting that way. There's also from the technical aspect of the game, which yes goes on the back burner because of the health aspect, but kids aren't going to be learning how to cross a ball, because if you're not learning how to head the ball, why would you cross it? Some ways that might work better, because we were actually talking about this, and I says that if you go back to the really good Barcelona team, whenever they had a corner, they played it short. Do you know what I mean? They had confidence in their technical ability. That punting the ball into the box wasn't for them. So in some ways, the technical aspect could be improved, but there are parts of the game which I think won't be improved. But I think the long and short of it is we need more evidence. But personally, I would err on the side of caution. If it comes to it where we have to outlaw it, if there is, it has to happen. So football 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago will look different to football now. And, be it in 20 years or 30 years' time, if heading's not a part of the game, so be it. But, I think there is a lot of studying and a lot of research to be done. But I'll go to JK then and hear what he thinks.
Well, I agree with the sentiment about the footballs. But if you look back sort of in that era of some of the players, I'll include Gordon McQueen in that. I don't think the ball, although it was different, I don't think it was maybe much. There was in between there. I think part of the problem is, if you look, the game was rough, very, very rough in that period. A lot of hard men in a lot of teams, and some of the challenges that went in, and there was nothing thought of somebody getting kicked in the head repeatedly. I mean, corners coming in and elbows going in. That's all stopped now. So, well, for the most part, there's the odd scuffle or whatever, but overall, I think it's definitely a purer game than it was then. I think that's got to help, because the amount of blows that those people were getting to the head can't have been helpful. In addition to the head on the ball, personally speaking, Gerry, sad to say, yes, you've mentioned about relatives and all the rest, but my mum has dementia, so I have personal experience of this. And, you know, I think the reality is, in terms of research, that it will take another 30 or 40 years because they'll want to compare and contrast and say what is happening now and different. So I don't think heading will ever be outlawed. I get what you're saying, the sentiment about Scotland, and they have to be applauded, but it's a wee bit like everything else. Can you really take an integral part of a game out of the football? I don't think you can. I know, you know, there's rule changes you can make for the better, but personally, I think heading a ball, you've said it yourself, it's a skill. Certain people can do it and certain people can't. And I would be surprised if it was ever taken out of the game completely. You know, I don't think there's any, I don't think it's going to happen. You know, and even it will take more research. Like, I'm sure you both maybe have picked up on Chris Sutton, who recently lost his father to dementia. And he has been campaigning heavily. And in fairness, it's like a lot of other things. It's getting the airtime that it needs, but it probably needs more airtime again, you know, and more investigation, as you say. But I think in terms of heading a ball, I think Scotland, I get why they did it, but I don't think it's going to make any significant difference. You know, I think isn't it, you're not allowed to head a ball before you're 12. Is that what it is?
So definitely, so there is a cut off. Like, I'm not sure. I
think it's 12 years of age from memory. It's a very emotive topic. It's very hard. It's a hard one to nail down. You know, you're always going to have opinion. People will have opinions on it. But then what, you know, would you not look at boxing and all the rest of it as well? You know, obviously Parkinson's and dementia and Alzheimer's as well. You know, they're contact sports, and boxing hasn't been stopped or outlawed. It'll continue on unabated. So for me, football won't change that much heading with regards to heading.
Yeah, I think that my only wee small bit on it would be, if you look at the number of head injuries that players get when they're on the pitch, it's almost never because they've headed the ball. It's because they've got an elbow on the head, or there's been a clash of heads, which could be from trying to head the ball, from banging their head on the ground, to get an elbow on the back of the head. You know, so an awful lot of the rough contact actually comes from not directly related to heading the ball. I thought, and I know that the Wolves game didn't go as we went, but there was some chat online that, what do you call the Wolves centre defender?
Cody.
Yeah, he got the ball full in the head from Roberts, near knocked him out, and everybody going, "Oh, he's not that injured." I'm sitting thinking, flip me, I think, you know, I think we've all played a bit of football at all different levels. If you get hit if somebody hits you in the head hard with a football, but it is like a punch. But there you go. But that comes back to the top of the conversation, which is, it's really sad to see somebody like Gordon McQueen. You know, I'm not sure what age of a lad he is, though. Would he be in his 70s yet?
He would be, yeah. Somewhere around early 70s.
We almost be getting ancient, because I would have said he was the same age as me. So he's
early to mid 70s, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I know definitely, like, from Leeds as well. Like, I don't know if any of you seen the documentary that in Big Jack Charlton, finding Jack Charlton, like, and you could see, you know, like what it done to him, and like it was very emotional watching it, you know, and I know, like, as I know, obviously, JK, it's personal to you and that as well, and we spoke about that briefly before, and to me, it's just, you know, ultimately, I just think that you know, players' safety and people's safety needs to come first. But I think before we get to the stage where we're banning headers, I think even if football can embrace whenever two players have a really bad collision on the pitch and they start to look at concussion protocols, and like, there's so many times where we've seen players, you know, taking a bad knock and, you know, saying, "I am all right," and nobody, you know, actually stopping them and forcing them and taking the decision out of their hands. So I think football is a lot of growth in terms of that.
I got concussion playing football one time, and looking back at it, the reaction to me, you know, what it did to me at the time was really quite scary, because I completely lost my short-term memory of the incident, and for like about an hour afterwards, I have no recollection of what happened, although I was conscious. Apparently I just kept repeating myself, even worse than I normally do. And you know, I had the car down with me and I couldn't drive the car home, and I ended up, I was in bed for 2 days before I felt right. Quite possibly would have you know, given myself some, you know, some form of brain injury, although recovered from and all that. It wasn't heading the ball, did it? It was just a clash where I fell over and landed on my head. Thanks. That it was really interesting to have that discussion, lads. Thank you for that. I know that was.
If you haven't, Brian, I know Gerry mentioned there, if you haven't had a chance to watch the Jack Charlton documentary, I don't care if you've had, you know, what experience you have or haven't had a dementia, it would break your heart. Absolutely break your heart.
What channel is it on?
I think can you get it on Amazon Prime? I think it's Amazon.
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah, like there's just not that it's not a spoiler by saying this, but they sort of show his wife showing him footage of Ireland, and it time and time again it's him staring quite listlessly at a computer and nothing, just vacant. Okay. The one time that he actually does speak and recognizes something, I'll not spoil it for you by saying what it is.
I know exactly what you're talking
about. I was close. I don't cry about much, Brian, but I'll tell you, I was very, very close. There was I could feel a little tear starting to well up a bit. So come on, catch yourself on. But honestly, I was close now. As close as I have been for a while. I think the last time I cried was whenever Lee Bowyer scored against AC Milan. Because of just the emotion of that one. It was just, I was drained. I was kicking. That's me. I was kicking every ball, and then when that fluke of a goal, well, he said he meant it, but that rainy night, and somebody was reminiscing about it there recently on a podcast and brought it all back. I was nearly in tears again, Brian. But anyway, no, I'm not an emotional person. Don't think that I am. I'm not very, not very tough Northern Irish. You know, you don't cry. You're not like that, son.
Yeah, apply emotion at the critical moments would be a lot of Northern Ireland men.
That's it.
Yeah, that's well. Thanks very much. I will watch that.
Yeah, give it a watch, and I would recommend anybody who's watching now or catches up with us later on, if you get an opportunity.
You're bound to know the Jack Charlton story about when he was Ireland manager and he was in a pub one night and he went to cash a check. Do you know that story?
Oh, I know. That's it. That's yeah. I'll tell you what. There's actually the documentary is well done. You know, there's a lot of actual footage of Ireland matches and trips and all the rest of it, and him arriving in Dublin as Ireland manager. Even the reaction then of some hotheads who weren't happy that any of the English ones were coming over here. It's unbelievable, the footage. It's very well done, I have to say. But here, that reminds me of something that you promised us on Friday. And if you can keep it short, what about the Shearer story?
Oh my God! Well, I think this is a great story. Back when Leeds were still in the Prem, so this must have been early. Hold on, let me get this right. No, this would have been in the 1990s, so maybe 96, 97. Leeds were beginning to go through a bit of a financial crisis by that stage. Whenever the financial crisis was starting and we were selling a few players, I'd booked to go over with two lads from Belfast to see Leeds v Newcastle. And I had an 8-year-old nephew who said, "Uncle B, could you get me Alan Shearer's autograph?" So I winked at him and winked at his dad and said, "I'll do my best." You know, off went to the match, and we were sitting watching the match. I think Newcastle might have won 1-0 or 2-1, and we were up in the big stand, and but with the Leeds lad, boy from Leeds who'd got us the tickets, and Shearer had been elbowing Redaby all day, and at one stage Redaby had the full blood stripe down the shirt from Shearer's elbow. So Shearer was getting a fair bit of stick. So at that stage, I remembered that I was supposed to get the autograph, and I said to my Leeds mate, he said, and he said, "Actually, we might be able to do this, because at the back of the ground where the players come out to get into their bus to take them away, they put up a little wooden bridge, and if you elbow, if you get your way up, all the players get quite close to you. So we decided to end the game and have a go at it. So we all headed off at the end of the game with our programs. And right enough, I don't know if you know the ground well, there's a set of steps out of the players' lounge, and they put this wooden bridge, which was only maybe 10 feet long, that went straight into the bus, and kept the players about 3 or 4 feet above your head. So given that it was mainly kids trying to get autographs, 4 bruising fellas managed to get to the front miraculously, and we're waiting. And I've got my program in my hand. I feel like a kid waiting for an ice cream. It was quite embarrassing, but there were 2 or 3 of my mates beside us, and one of my best mates who was sitting beside me, who'd been sort of giving Shearer a bit of abuse the whole match because of the elbow, and was sat here. And so the Newcastle players are coming out and blah, 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 blah. And eventually Shearer's coming along and he starts signing autographs, and he's on our side. And he was about 3 away from me. And I said, Alan, like a big twit, Alan, I'm from Belfast. Will you sign my program? And he looked at me and he gave me the Shearer. No, like that. I thought, great. And he was 2 away from me and then 1 away from me. And my mate shouted, Alan, sign his with your elbow. And I was the only one that couldn't sign. He just got to me, looked at me, went on to the next guy and signed them all, and he wouldn't sign my program. Right. So anyway, cut a long story short, he signed the 3 other lads' ones though. So I
so you got one
with the program signed by Alan Shearer. I give it to my nephew, who's absolutely delighted. And his dad just turned around and said, "You don't really think that's Alan Shearer's signature? Your uncle just did that when you weren't looking."
The pain I've gone through.
And you know, is I'm pretty sure that my brother doesn't believe that was, but that is my God.
Well, it's on tape now, Brian. It's for all to see.
It was brilliant though, Chicky. You know that Shearer just gave me the nod of, yeah, I'm going to say that. I nodded like that, and then didn't.
If you don't mind, we're going to slide off top, but I'll do a very, very, I suppose this is part and parcel of what we're doing. I'll do a very quick story on a match that I was at. Do you remember the time that Beckham was out shopping with Posh in London, and then he was benched by Ferguson, and it just happened to be Leeds Manchester United. It was on live on Sky, and I was at that game. I think it was the one that Bosnich had a wonder game. He must have made about 5 or 6 saves from Ian Hart alone, and Bowyer had a chance right at the very death. I think it was Andy Cole scored maybe for United, so they won 1-0. But anyway, the game had been going on for a while, and you could hear where I was sitting. There was quite a lot of Ferrari behind, and it was like Ellen Road is an intense place, as you know, at the best of times. And because it was Manchester, it was quite fiery. I thought, eventually I looked around and I could see a few familiar faces. I could see the Emmerdale cast tend to be always there and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. But somebody said, look who it is. Look who it is. There it was, Beckham with the baseball cap on. You've never seen as many Leeds fans get their photograph, their autograph, everything taken. I thought, you're a fickle bunch. If I saw him, I wouldn't. But the thing that made me laugh the most was about 2 up from him, and I was with a mate of mine. He said to him, "Look 2 up. Look at the grumpy man beside him." It was wee Strachan with his missus, and not one Leeds fan asked for his autograph. And I thought, there you go. Okay, he's ex-Man U, but he was Leeds for us for a while, and he was super for us, and not one. I could see the face on him. He was like, "Why isn't nobody asked for my autograph?" Sort of thing. So, but they are stardom. The Beckham, Mr. Beckham was getting all that.
He'd been wearing that sort of, I can't remember the name of it. It was like a female skirt or something like that.
You
see, Gerry knows the lady's passion.
I have a couple.
Tell me this, JK. Is that match had been about maybe 94, 95, and Andy Cole scored the only goal into the cup end? He sort of broke away and scored it.
Yes.
I was at that
game. I remember the goal.
I was at that game too.
Yeah. And do you remember Bosnich?
The West stand's the big stand. I was in the middle of the big stand. So I remember watching that game. And there was rumors that there was a Man United supporter in the stand close to us. And I thought there was going to be Harry Carey. That's a great story.
Yeah.
I met Steve Bruce when Steve's son, what do you call him? played.
Alex
Bruce played for us for a few years during the earlier part of the last decade, maybe about 2012 or 2013, something like that. I had a season or two, and the business I work for had a couple of 4 or 5 tickets for every game, and I bumped into Steve Bruce a couple of times watching games. Nice, really nice lad, really nice.
Yeah.
I said, what's it like being at Ellen Road, Steve? He says, we all support Leeds now. And he was saying that, because his son was playing for him. Very nice lad.
Exactly.
Well,
my kitchen clock's on this. I think 9 o'clock. Is that 9 o'clock on?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to go and get my dinner in a minute, but what the one thing I wanted to ask, and I needed with basically a full Irish cast here, and I wanted just to ask one question, and it was, who is your favourite Irish Leeds player? So, does either of you want to go first?
Johnny Giles.
Johnny Giles, right? What about you, Brent?
Not that I saw an awful lot of him, but he's a man. Although people that I've seen live, well, John Sheridan, as you know.
Shez was one of your favourites. What about you, Brent?
Well, I'd have to say that Johnny Giles, I'm of the age that when I first started supporting Leeds, Johnny Giles was the man. He certainly launched a lot of Leeds supporters in Ireland. So it'd be very difficult not to choose Johnny. But, I got to say to you, Stuart Dallas is pushing him out of the way at the minute a wee bit. I am so proud of Stuart Dallas. So proud of him.
For me, and from the years I've watched Leeds, obviously, like, to me, Johnny Giles is that fella that's usually shaking his head at something that Eamon Dunphy said in RTE. So
yeah.
obviously I've watched the highlights and stuff, but I'm too young to remember him as a player. But for me, by a mile, by the way, Gerry Kelly, what a player he was. Absolutely loved him. And he didn't do the dirt on us as well, like so many of that generation did. So, but that's it for tonight. We could have talked about the Aston Villa game, but personally, I'd rather bask in.
We'll let others do that. We'll let your big famous guest on Friday night. You kept that very quiet. The big reveal.
We'll see how that goes. I'm hoping he'd be able to tell me, exactly how many times Leeds have played Aston Villa and how many all this year.
Well, he will.
Big expectations. I've
had a lot of interactions with him on Twitter over the years. He's a really nice fella.
He does. He seems like a nice guy.
Yes, yeah.
100%. We'll see how that goes anyway. But yeah, so rather than look ahead to Villa, we'll just bask in the ambience of a 3-0 win, and we'll enjoy that for the next couple of days. And then we'll worry about Aston Villa and who's playing midfield. But big thanks to Brian and JK. Hopefully, I personally enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. There was a bit of crack, bit of banter, a bit of serious stuff there, and some good nostalgia.
Yeah.
So thanks to you guys, and thanks to everybody that's either watched now or watching later. And as I say, we'll be back on Friday night. We've got James and Debbie, and as JK alluded to, Andrew Dalton, who's LUFC Stats or Stats AB. He does all the stats on Twitter and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that one. And obviously the author of the history of Leeds United book as well, and he's a couple of orbits and stuff. So it'll be good to get a bit of chat, and I know he's friendly with James and Debbie as well. So hopefully it should be fun. But 3-0 tonight, we're all delighted, and I'm away to eat a steak dinner, so it doesn't get better than that. So thanks to everyone, and
thanks everybody.
Enjoy your evening.
Okay, take care, everyone. See you tonight. Bye bye.
Thank you.